I just replayed every God of War game so you don't have to. Unless you want to, because they're very good. God of War is a video game series spanning over 20 years, with 10 games in total and 1 DLC for God of War 5, let's call it. And with a remake of the original trilogy and a whole new game altogether coming soon on the horizon, God of War ain't slowing down. So as of right now, I have played all of the God of War games available, and it's only appropriate that I tell you the objective ranking from worst to best, in crowning one title the God of God of War. Now, in all seriousness, if you don't like the order in which I place these games, that's too bad. It's my video. This is just for fun. I just really like God of War and I want to rank all the games. And I will have God of War Ragnarok Valhalla, like the DLC, in its own category. Now, starting off this list at the bottom, we have God of War Betrayal for the mobile device. Oh my god, it's so loud. Surprisingly easy to get a hold of. It took me all of 5 minutes to download an emulator and get the actual God of War game going. It was more figuring out, like, mapping the controls was genuinely the hardest part, but once I figured the controls out, it's actually pretty cool. I never played this game on my phone, like I just played it recently on my computer. It follows a story of betrayal as Kratos is framed for murder, which is kind of funny in the grand scheme of things because Kratos does that a lot. So him being framed for murder, regardless of who it is really, is just kind of funny. But it's a simple plot, not a very long game as it is on the mobile device. But considering that, it's still kind of cool. It has a lot going for it. This game takes place in between Ghost of Sparta and God of War 2. So Kratos is a god in this game. Like, he is the God of War. It's one of the very few games in this series where weapons actually carry over. Like, you have the Blade of Athena, Medusa's head. You have something to do with Hades where you can attack your enemies like with a projectile. I guess that's not really carried over. I don't know, but the other two are. And although I have this on the bottom of the list for God of War games, it's probably one of the better mobile games you'll play, if not one of the best. Like, it really feels like a God of War game, especially in the 2D aspect, which at the time they've never done. And now they've done it with Sons of Sparta, which I will get to. But I do feel like things like the score is non-existent. There isn't a score. There's a score in the title, and then during the actual game, it's just when you finish your combo, there's like a sound effect. That's literally the only audio in the whole game. So that actually sucks, and you're kind of just enjoying the game in silence, which is a little awkward. That more, attributes to atmosphere and all that stuff like that. A cool thing about God of War Betrayal, though, like story-wise, is there's a lot of questions in like God of War lore of like why Zeus allowed Kratos to just like do that, to just be God of War, kind of. God of War Betrayal kind of covers a lot of those like loopholes of story, I guess, because there's even like a direct part where Zeus sends a messenger to Kratos to be like, hey, stop doing that, and Kratos kills that guy. So I think he's actually the main boss. Yup. Yeah, and Kratos kills that guy, which pisses off Zeus even more, which trigger the events of God of War 2. So that's pretty cool. I like that a lot. So ultimately, a very good mobile game, but I do have to put it on the bottom of the list for our God of War franchise. Let's put it in the B tier. Next on the list for our God of War games, we have Sons of Sparta for the PS5, the newest addition to the God of War series. Another 2D, well, I say another 2D pixelated game, but that's because I just talked about Betrayal. So it's a 2D pixelated Metroidvania game. They're switching it up at their approach for God of War, which I really liked. Like, I love exploring around in this game. That was probably the best part, was when you were able to teleport around. Like, there was a way to fast travel at a certain point, but then once you got even farther, you got an actual like mount that could just take you to any of the previous bonfires that you had gone to, which made traveling a lot easier, which made going back and cleaning up areas a lot easier. Once you got, like, it's Metroidvania, so you'd go into an area, you can't do anything because you don't have the item or the ability. Then you'd go get the item and ability later in the game, so you're like, oh, I have all these areas I want to go and explore now. So you go back to those areas, and it became a lot easier once you got the Griffin, is the animal that is your fast travel companion. The game itself, story-wise, follows Kratos and his brother Deimos, and basically the entire game they're looking for a missing Spartan, Vasilis. There you go, Vasilis. And Vasilis alone, I'm gonna be so honest, almost makes this the worst God of War game, because I was so like hoping they would tie it in to the main, like, 'cause all of the God of War games directly tie into the like timeline, let's say, in some way or another, and they all have their own individual events, but they mesh together like really well. And I feel like this one is kind of like a random event in Kratos's life that doesn't like necessarily tie in, because after this, like, basically I thought the game would cover Deimos being kidnapped and the kind of turn of Kratos becoming so like angry and stuff, but instead they go down a much different route with having him and his brother trying to find a lost Spartan and them kind of going against the rules and learning more about like Spartan unity and more of like a no one gets left behind mentality. It's still a very solid Metroidvania game painted with God of War, which I really like. And like, although the combat with your spear is a little bit dull, you're just pressing square a lot. Once you start to bring out the magic, like the magic items that you get, those things are so overpowered. It's so funny, but in a very good way, I think. Well, I don't know. They're definitely overpowered. Is it good? Is it not? I don't know, but it's fun. It sure is fun. That's for sure. Holy fuck. In classic God of War fashion, they do have some cool bosses, some very cool moments, so I do think it fits in well. It's just, at the same time, the biggest outlier in the series, which I will also place in the B column. Now, I was going to keep going in order from worst to best, but I think I'm going to change it up a little bit. Now we're going to go in chronological order of video games for fun, because I feel like it's too predictable where the games are going to go on the list if I go in order like that, so I'm going to switch it up, and now we're going to talk about God of War Ascension. Releasing on the PS3 in 2013, this is the first game chronologically in the series for Kratos. Well, aside from Sons of Sparta, I guess. Oh, so I guess we are going chronological because I just did Sons of Sparta. Nice. But this game for me has a lot going for it. In this game, we have Kratos trying to break his blood oath to Ares, which makes the three Fury sisters end up going after him because they're kind of the oath keepers. So now that Kratos is trying to break that, they're going to torture him. Game has some pretty crazy moving set pieces, kind of like first area you're in, it's like Tectonius or so, I can't remember the giant's name, but whole first area is made out of a giant. It's so sick. So right off the bat, this game changes a few major things with combat that we appreciate them trying to do something new. So circle becomes grab. There you go. Circle is the grab button. In God of War Ascension, it is not. You do like a kick or like a shoulder charge. Like, it just is so odd. I'm basically never pressing that button unless it's for a QTE or something like that. And then for unique weapons, they give you droppable ones from enemies like a spear, a sword, a hammer. I think there's a sling in there as well. And these definitely don't do the job. They just don't do the job. They're not as satisfying as just using your blades or getting like an actual unique weapon from defeating a boss. They're just not the best. I definitely don't love them. I did actually like the magic system in this game. Instead of getting, well, you get magic from the gods, but it's more now your blade is fire, lightning, Hades ghost stuff, or ice for Poseidon, and you can rotate between them, and they all, like, defeating enemies when you had purple on gave you more red orbs, I think. And if you had Poseidon, like the ice one on, that one gave you more green orbs after defeating enemies. So there was reasons for using all of them. And after upgrading them, you would get a magic ability pertaining to that specific ability, whether it be Hades, Poseidon, Zeus, or Ares. So that I actually didn't hate as much as some other people do. I definitely don't mind that like at all, but it's just with this combination of all these things they do for the combat, you have to play very safe in some fights, because instead of you, like when you hit enemies with certain attacks, you stagger them like crazy, right? But you get staggered by like everything. In the middle of a combo, an enemy can stagger you. Like, it's just, you have to really be a lot more careful in fights in this game, which is not fun, because the whole point of the series, right, is like a lot of enemies, button mashing. There's not a lot of like singular enemy fights unless it's some sort of large boss battle. So being able to be interrupted so frequently does not help the flow of combat, and it can be very frustrating when there's multiple hard enemies. Now, there are a lot of enemies in this game that you can just grab and throw over the edge, which is pretty sick, because you can chain people with your blades in this game. Like, you can throw your blades at them and have them on the end of a chain, and you can like whip them around with it, and that's really sick, or you can just throw them off the edge, which I would do at every opportunity. Like, there are some arenas in this game that you can just spam the grab button and you're killing enemies instantly. You know what I mean? It's just not, I think it was R1 in that game. And this game also loves to slide. I don't know if that must have been of the time, I guess. Like, it's very, this game out of all of the God of War games has the most action adventure feel, I think. Like, there are a lot of climbing sections and sliding sections. I don't know what else to call them other than sliding, where he's literally like using the blade and you're sliding down the side of a building, you know, and then you have to press X to jump and then grapple onto something and grapple onto something else, and then you're in a climbing section. And it was very interesting, a lot of cinematic stuff with the climbing, and the climbing was very fluid. Like, Kratos is just like, it's not, he's going to one and then stopping and then to the next and stopping and then to the next and stopping. Like, he's moving quite a bit, and I really liked that. But it did have that like Uncharted feel almost. So I can see why this game did not land for a lot of gamers. For me, it did. I have the steelbook for it actually, and I personally really liked the online, but I'm also not a big online gamer. Multiplayer online, I mean. That was a very perfect beat 'em up, button mashing online game. Like, I think it was really fun. I think it changed up. There aren't any online games really like that, I don't think. I have a whole video, maybe over here I'll put it, of God of War Ascensions online, because I just thought it was so cool and unique, especially for its time. So I'm not going to go in depth about it right now, but the whole online system I just think is really cool. So that's a big plus for me in this game. But yeah, if you want to know more about that, then there's the video right there. Oh, I guess actually one last thing I will say before moving on is that the pacing of this game confuses the fuck out of me, because they have 2 flashbacks in the game that are very long. Like, it is so long, and then it loops back around to the beginning of the game, and you're like, oh, now I understand how we got here, type of thing, which is fine. Like, you know, you're starting the game kind of in the middle of the story. But yeah, the pacing of back and forth is very confusing. Watching like the chronological order cutscene video for God of War Ascension is like a pretty good idea, but I know a lot of people probably don't care to do that. But just a suggestion. Anyways, I have a soft spot for this game, so we're gonna put it at the back of A tier for now, with the possibility of it going to B tier. I'm just gonna say it. It could happen. Depending on how A tier looks, I can move Ascension to the top of B. I'd be willing to compromise. But for now, it's in A, because it's my fucking video. Next, going in chronological order, we have God of War 1. The first game released in the series in 2005. It follows Kratos on his path of revenge to fighting the God of War Ares for manipulating him and turning him on his own family, turning him into the ghost of Sparta. This game is where it all began. You'll be spending the majority of the game on the back of Kronos, as he holds the temple to Pandora's box, which is Kratos' main goal, for it holds the power to kill a god. Throughout the temple, there are lots of enemies, but even more puzzles, and also a minotaur. Also throughout is where you will get magic from the gods, Poseidon, Athena, Zeus, and Hades, which you get magic from all of them, except Athena, you get the Athena blade, but with your main weapon being Poseidon's Rage, because that's probably one of the best magic spells in the whole game, to be completely honest. Well, the whole series. This game also has an equal amount of platforming, so you got like a lot of platforming, puzzles, button mashing combat, and like one hard boss fight. Well, the Minotaur is kind of annoying, to be completely honest, and Ares is actually a hard boss fight. Decently layered, pretty fun. Steve Blum, we love you. With it being the first game of the series, they weren't exactly expecting to make a sequel, so the ending has been retconned, but the game really does have a full story and conclusion. Like, if they just left it at that, that could work, honestly. I'm very glad they continued, but it really could work. Like, the game is its own standalone thing. So with saying that, paying respects to the one that started it all, while also being a little controversial, I'm going to be putting this one in A tier, right behind God of War Ascension. That's right. I'm putting it behind God of War Ascension. For me, God of War 1, I don't care to replay it that much, if I'm being so completely honest. I'd rather replay 2 and 3 just on repeat. I even debate on putting it in the top of B. Oh. I've gone too far with that one. Next, we have God of War Chains of Olympus, releasing in 2008 for the PSP. I really like the story of this game. It basically takes place in the 10 years of Kratos serving the gods. Persephone and Atlas steal the sun from the sky in hopes to destroy Mount Olympus. Ultimately, they're kind of trying to destroy the whole world, because it will destroy the underworld, it'll spread all the souls everywhere. No one really is gonna be safe, because Persephone is pretty pissed that she is forcefully having to be in the underworld. So the gods send Kratos to investigate, basically. And kind of the major, like, thing about this game is the pushing your daughter away QTE near the end of the game. That's like the most big event in this game, is that. Like, everyone remembers that from this game. And yeah. Enemies are fairly simple, with there being obviously a handful of enemies Kratos can just spam grab and just absolutely mess their whole day up. Another really big thing in this game is the Gauntlet of Zeus, which is basically just a nuke. Like, that thing is so strong. Like, you don't even have to upgrade it, and it is just obliterating everything. That weapon is so strong, it's crazy. It's easily one of the strongest weapons you get in the whole side series. Yeah, I guess I don't have that much to say about this game. Like, I do think the Basilisk opening fight is pretty cool. Like, the game isn't bad, it's just that Ghost of Sparta is so much better, to be completely honest, that it's like, shit. It's kind of hard to... I really shouldn't be comparing, but I guess, yeah, it's just that game is so much better, like, in almost every way. Things that make Chains of Olympus stand out are, like, those story beats that everyone kind of remembers. It is kind of crazy that that's, like, the biggest moment about that game, is you literally pushing your daughter away, but it is a pretty big deal, and they bring it up a bunch of times in the newer games. So with that, I will put Chains of Olympus in B. Now, I'm not exactly sure where in B, but I will do that in editing. I don't know where exactly it's going to go, but it's going to go somewhere. Moving on to the next game in the series, we have God of War Ghost of Sparta, released in 2010 for the PSP. It's a direct upgrade from its earlier game, Chains of Olympus, which obviously it's not a direct sequel or anything like that, but them both being on the PSP, it's hard not to compare them. Very similar monster types, but Ghost of Sparta really does take it in story, combat, pacing, level design, atmosphere, just everything. It is just so much better. This game is set in between the events of God of War 1 and God of War 2. So one of the very few games where you actually play as the God of War. And the creators make sure that you know that. You are pretty busted in this game, or at least you feel very strong. We get introduced to the gear guys in this game. Pretty sure this is their introduction anyways. Where it's an enemy that is holding a gear that once you defeat the enemy, you use this gear as an actual object to like open a door or complete a puzzle. We've got one of my favorite enemy designs where it's kind of like Atlas, and it's a monster with 4 arms holding this giant boulder that is covered in like screaming faces. Like, I just think the design is so cool. There's also this typhoon part which sucks, and it could glitch and you have to reset it, and it's just like seemingly forever even when it doesn't glitch. But aside from that, the game plays really well. So this game gives you a lot of backstory on Kratos and his brother Deimos and what happened to them as young children fighting and training to be Spartan warriors. His brother is kidnapped. Kratos always assumes that he is dead, but he finds out his brother is alive and being tortured by Thanatos at the command of the gods. So he sets out to find his brother. And honestly, when we finally find Deimos, the boss fight with Deimos, and then when they come together and end up fighting Thanatos together, is genuinely one of the coolest parts in the whole series. It's so awesome. Having Kratos team up with his brother like that is just so cool, because they could have very easily had his brother kind of be the main villain and end up hating Kratos because he's like, oh, you didn't come save me, you weren't there for me, and then maybe that ends up being the final boss battle, which still would be very cool. I think that would be also creative, but I like the way they went with it in this game. Also, I didn't mention that earlier, like the very beginning of this game, kind of the route in which we find this information out. Kratos like seeks out his mother, and his mother has a kind of a curse on her that when she reveals who Kratos' real father is, she turns into, I can't remember what kind of monster, but that ends up being the final, the major first boss fight in the game. And I think it just adds so much to Kratos' character and how they do it. Because in God of War 1, they kind of, I don't think this part was retconned, but it's a secret ending. I don't remember exactly how you get it. I think you have to beat the game on God mode or hard mode, or you have to do some sort of challenge, and you get a cutscene where it shows Kratos' mom divulging to Kratos that his father is Zeus. So in this game, he also finds that out. And really this game with that information and then finding all the stuff out that happens with his brother and Deimos, it is here that Kratos kind of finally is like, no, I'm something must be done. And though he can't wage war directly on Zeus at that time, God of War 2 happens right after. And basically this game I think is a good, like every game gives Kratos a very good reason for his vengeful path that he takes, but this game definitely seems to be the final straw. A PSP game that feels like a PS2 game, it being basically an all-around better sequel to the game that came before it on the same console, having a fantastic story. I think it's one of the best in the Greek saga. I didn't even mention the specialty weapon you get in this game is the Arms of Sparta, which is Kratos' spear and shield from when he was a kid, which I think is great. I personally prefer the chains in this game. I prefer the blades in most of pretty much every game, but like in Chains of Olympus, you get Zeus's gauntlet and it's just a nuke. But in this game, you get the Arms of Sparta, which also are very good. I think I'm not playing with them correctly, but you end up giving them to Deimos anyways for the final boss, and I think that's just it's just mechanically, I think that's perfect. I think that's awesome that we give that to him. So with all that said and done, I think God of War Ghost of Sparta is easily one of the best games in the entire series. We're putting it in the S tier. That's our first S game. I think this could be one of the best games in the whole series. I already know what my best game is. Spoilers, it's not Ghost of Sparta, but if you have not played Ghost of Sparta and you've played like the new games maybe, I do think that this game has a lot more to put your teeth into other than it just being a hack and slash bloodbath. There is a very good story being told in here, which is why I like it a lot too, because it just has the whole package. And the PSP is a goated system, so it's really just got everything working out for it. Now moving on, God of War 2. Another absolute banger in the series, not even gonna hide it. God of War 2, if you're playing, you just go God of War 1, God of War 2, God of War 3. God of War 2, the story goes absolutely bonkers from here, especially because God of War 1 is pretty basic. It's pretty plain in that way, and they didn't have plans for a sequel. So when the sequel comes out, they came out swinging, dude. Oh my God, it's so good. God of War 2 takes place, I guess, right after Ghost of Sparta. So Kratos is still the God of War. He is waging siege on, I can't remember where. Basically, as his time as a god, he has taken a lot of favor in his Spartan brothers. So he's been helping them wage war across Greece. And the gods have noticed this and have decided that it may be time to get Kratos the fuck out of there. So Zeus baits Kratos into putting all of his powers into the Sword of Olympus, Blade of Olympus, whatever, this cool sword that I absolutely love, draining him of all of his godly powers, and Zeus uses the sword to kill the rest of the Spartan army, and as well as Kratos. Kratos doesn't care about that, and he literally crawls his way, well, jumps his way, platforming wise, back out of hell. And that's just the intro sequence. We get the nice introduction to Gaia in this game. We get a lot of nice Easter eggs from a whole bunch of different Greek mythology tales. Like, this is where Icarus comes into play. We have the boss fight with the barbarian king Alaric, who's in, you know, God of War 1's opening cutscene. Like, he was about to kill Kratos, and Kratos begged for Ares' help. Ares gave it to him. Kratos killed Alaric. Now, Alaric is brought back to life in this game as a boss fight. It's pretty cool. We got the Kraken in this one. We got Perseus, and we finally put the cherry on top with a nice boss fight against Zeus. And also the Sisters of Fate. And this game goes directly into God of War 3 so smoothly. The ending cutscene of God of War 2 is the opening cutscene of God of War 3. It's such a beautiful setup for God of War 3. The only thing in this game, really, aside from the other games, there are a couple like outliers, I think. The weapons you get the Barbarian Hammer, which I didn't love, but it kind of gets super busted like later on because it just spews ghosts out. So that it is pretty cool. Get a spear. Don't know how to use this thing. I have no clue how to, I just don't even use it because it's just kind of a confusing weapon if I'm being completely honest. But then you get the Blade of Olympus, absolutely goated. And like, I guess another cool thing with this game, like your stuff carries over from 2 to, well, not like your save file or anything, but like Kratos gets the Golden Fleece in God of War 2 and that carries over to God of War 3. And I like stuff like that because, you know, in a lot of the games, they have to nerf Kratos in some way. This is almost more talking about God of War 3. They have to nerf him in some way because he's just so strong, and they kind of just don't. After, well, in 3 they do, but I like the transition from how they nerf him in 2 and then how they deal with it again at the end and beginning of, at the end of 2 and beginning of 3. Just kind of adds to the whole thing. Another kind of weird thing with 2 where it shares this similarity with Ascension, where Ascension, they have a lot of like sliding sections where Kratos is sliding down a mountain or something. In God of War 2, there's a lot of on rails like flying sections. They have a couple in 3 as well, to be completely fair, but Yeah, there's like I think there's one right at the beginning of 2 when he's on his way to the Sisters of Fate. He's on like a Pegasus, and it's just him flying in the air, and it's just you, just like this. You're just moving around, and it's just like you get on the Pegasus, and the Pegasus just takes you in the air, and you're just flying around like, and you get, you know, taken up on your little Pegasus, and the Pegasus like just goes around the screen, like it's just on rail section, and you're just moving around the screen. And they're very easy. They do a couple of them, or a few, I think, and definitely not a fan of them. I gotta be honest, they're kind of boring, and that adds into 3. That actually bleeds into 3. It's probably one of my least favorite parts about 3. I think there are 2 parts where you're using the wings, we're using Icarus's wings, and you're flying through the steam like thing. So definitely not huge fans of that, but overall, God of War 2, phenomenal game. It's like, you know, Ghost of Sparta to Chains of Olympus. You know, God of War 2 is to God of War 1. It is just a straight upgrade. They go absolutely bonkers with the story, like just fucking crazy with it. And I guess especially when you're comparing it to 1 and 3. 3 is nuts because of the stuff you do and like the gods you kill. But in 2, they just got so creative. 1 just has more of a, you know, basic plot line, I guess. 3 also does too. 2, you are like all over the place, and it's so sick. Like you end up being in a lot of atmospheres where when you think of God of War, you don't necessarily put Kratos in like, you know, like a forest, like surrounded by trees or something. You don't really think of that unless you're thinking about him on top of Gaia at the beginning of God of War 3. But anyways, I probably could rant about that one for a while. We should move on. So yeah, and saying all of that, God of War 2, where does it fall onto our scale here? And I will be putting it in S rank. Boom, that's right. We got back-to-back S ranks. Surprise, surprise. Where in comparison to Ghost of Sparta, I'm not really sure. I'm gonna put it, we'll just keep S rank as S rank for now, because I will be crowning a number 1. So we got the 2 games are in S rank, and I like it. Next on the list, let's be so real, it's the one you've all been waiting for. God of War 3, baby. God of War 3 is the explosive climax, starting right where God of War 2 ends. God of War 3 has us in the middle of the siege onto Olympus. Kratos traveling with Gaia as she climbs Mount Olympus. The gods go on the defensive, with one in particular trying to fight Kratos right away. Poseidon, the very first boss fight of the game, within minutes. I just love how they do Poseidon, even if it's only for a short time because you beat the ever-living shit out of him. And then you have one of the most personal, intimate deaths in the whole series with you claiming the POV of Poseidon as Kratos beats the shit out of you, but you are using the controller. It is so cool. And we've seen the aftermath of killing gods throughout the series in like smaller ways, but killing Poseidon shows just how much of a big deal it is to truly kill a god, with the ocean being untamed, rising to its limits, completely covering whatever city that is. I think it's Athens over there, I'm not too sure. Sending the world into absolute disarray, and it just gets worse from here. This is literally just the intro. After that, you're really just dealing with the rest of the gods as they try to get into your way as you climb Mount Olympus to finally face Zeus. And you're fighting all of the major gods. Like, you're doing the big 3 in this game of Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades. And also, there's a lot of gods that names start with an H. We have, in this game alone, we've got Hades, Helios, Hercules, Hermes, Hephaestus, and you kill them all, with easily the hardest boss in the game being this dumbass scorpion. All of the weapons in this game are really cool. I always find it very hard to kind of pick one to use, even though they make it easy to flip in between the ones that you get. I probably use these electrical ones that Hephaestus gives you like the least, because I really like the Hades claws, and the Hercules gauntlets are kind of like the Zeus gauntlets, and they're just 2 atomic bombs on your fucking fists. This game really does have it all, especially like if you were to play this game even alone, like without playing the other games, it's still just a banger of a game. Like from start to finish, it is just high octane, nuts to butts action. And we're at the climax of our revenge story here, so there is no turning back. But we're also introduced to Pandora, who Kratos very much is like, this reminds me of my daughter Calliope. So we're still seeing that there is some human in Kratos left, but he kind of has to make this decision as to how much is his revenge worth. And ultimately, it is worth everything. This game, in my opinion, has some of the best boss fights, best combat, the best weapons, best brutal kills for mini bosses, normal enemies, and big bosses alike, into a genuinely poetic finale that would kickstart the Norse mythology in ways none of us would ever know at all. But even just for what it is in the moment at the time, can't even put into words how good I think this game is, how important it is to me. God of War 3 is going in the S tier if it wasn't obvious enough. And if I didn't have an order before, I sure as heck got one now, because God of War 3 is on the top of S tier. If I ever did see a top of S tier, then that is the top. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. God of War 3 is at the top. Don't worry, we're almost there. We're actually through all of the Greek games now. What'd you think of that? We still have the Norse era to go, but if you're still watching, thank you very much. I very much appreciate it. Maybe consider subscribing. Okay, to the Norse era. God of War 2018, the rebirth of Kratos and the God of War franchise. Completely changing up God of War as we know it. We now have an over-the-shoulder perspective similar to Resident Evil 4, instead of our normal fixed camera at a certain angle. The combat still keeps that brutality, but it just has a little bit more thought to it. There's a little bit more depth as to what you can actually do with the combos in that game, aside from just pressing square, square, triangle, triangle, square, square, etc. The new primary weapon, the Leviathan Axe, really adds a lot to that combat. Being able to throw it and bring it back on command really opens up for the different types of combinations that you can do, from using your axe to using your fists to later on in the game getting the Chains of Olympus once again. The story is also a lot different than what we see in the Greek saga. This game's a lot more father-son focused, where it's a story about Kratos trying to be a good father by having his son not turn into him, and in turn of doing that, he's kind of having his son follow down the same path similarly. So he's just trying to navigate fatherhood and trying to accept his past and move forward with it, aside from letting it be something that completely defies him and makes him that type of person. He wants to move on from it and be a new type of person. The main goal of this game is to bring your wife's ashes to the top of the highest mountain in the realm. And it's a very basic plot, even just from explaining it like that. There's obviously a lot of twists and turns and things don't go as planned, but comparing to like the sequel, God of War Ragnarok, like the story of God of War Ragnarok is a lot more complicated, but 4 is a lot simpler, and I really like how you're not getting too tangled up in the plot, but more just being absorbed in the emotional story that's being told, while still having the feeling of brutal combat like the old games. You still do get new items from bosses in these games, but it's more that in the later half of the game, you're going to get your original weapons, like the blades, back because of a story reason, but you end up getting them back, and they're like so strong at this point, or at least they feel very strong, but also because of, you know, Kratos is coming to terms with his past, and these blades, we're going back to get these blades so that we can go into hell to acquire a heart to save our sick son. It only makes sense that we have these weapons that are extremely powerful and basically just cut their way through anyone. So yeah, when you get them in the game, they are incredibly strong, and it feels like such an upgrade from the axe. Whereas in Ragnarok, the feeling's a lot different, but I will get to that. Like, I still remember the reveal at E3 and just losing my absolute mind, and even in the video that has gone viral since then of that moment of them revealing Kratos, that he's back and just in an all new look, and for it to just completely live up to the expectations from, you know, the combat, the story, the big boss fights. I feel like those are what makes God of War God of War. The brutal combat, big boss fights, and gripping story. The major difference with this game is that you have side characters who you actually care about and you actually like. That does happen, you know, in the Greek saga, but there's only a couple characters who you actually grow to have any sort of emotional relationship outside of Kratos. I did end up platining this game, and it was a pretty good platinum. Honestly, a lot of fun. The Valkyries, though, pain in the ass, very difficult. But just the whole flow of the game, how the story progresses, how you're allowed to go and just go about on your own, and it doesn't feel like, you know, when you're playing a game and something crazy is happening and you're progressing in the story, but then you just go and do a side quest and it's like, yeah, but like that building's on fire over there, you kind of should go over and do that, but now we're just sidetracked. They don't do anything crazy like that, where it feels appropriate that you're able to go and explore at any point. And the exploring is so satisfying. Like, they just nail this open world right off the bat. Not even the full scale of like the whole Norse, you know, mythology. Like, they don't even go into most of the other realms that are available. Most of the game takes place in Midgard. It's not till the next game where you really start to travel around quite a bit. God of War 4 is just such an overall good game. Like, Mimir on Kratos' belt has become just a staple of his characters, having Mimir there. Like, it's just, they really do such a good job with all of the other characters in these games. Like, it's just so good. Like, it's not all about Kratos. Like, everyone else has a lot of stuff going on. And for the most part, you actually care. And I think that's a very hard thing to achieve. So with saying all that, I think it would be very, very, very hard for me to not put God of War 4 in S tier. Right above God of War 2. I think I'm finding the placements for these games in S tier as we're going. Normally, I know there's not this many games in S tier, but Jesus Christ, does God of War make so many good video games, man. And you know, the hill that I will die on is that you should play the Greek saga before you go into the Norse saga. But the fact that you can play God of War 4 and still have that emotional attachment, everything will still hit pretty damn good, I think is just a testament to how good the game actually is. And just how well crafted these characters are, how well crafted the world is. God, the combat's so fun. The combat really is so much fun in that game. Throwing the axe is just so satisfying. Like, damn. Switching to the blades in a combo, like, fuck. So simple, but so clean. So yeah, it's going into S tier right above God of War 2, which leaves us with God of War Ragnarok, releasing in 2022. This is actually the longest gap in between God of War games. But yes, Ragnarok takes place years in the future after God of War 2018. We see Kratos' son Atreus a little bit more grown up. And as the title suggests, this game revolves around Ragnarok, the end of the world, which is teased at the end of the 2018 game, so it does make sense. I don't think I mentioned the opening to 2018 with Baldur and the fight that they get into. The opening of God of War Ragnarok is so good. It is so good. Having Kratos immediately looking like a badass, we're on a sled, shit's pretty cool, getting attacked right away, and then very shortly after having the same cutscene that's at the very end of God of War 4, if you go back to your house, there's a special cutscene which will then roll the credits. And it's basically a dream Atreus is having of the future, and Thor shows up at your cabin. And this cutscene is replayed, almost reimagined in God of War Ragnarok, 1-to-1. You get introduced to Odin and Thor right off the bat. You have a boss fight with Thor immediately, you knock one of his teeth out. Like, it is just such a hardcore intro. The thing that brings this game down is, unfortunately, the plot. The plot is kind of all over the place. And I do think the beauty of the first one is you're only in a couple different settings and you really start to warm to these environments. But in 2, you're in, well, in, sorry, not 2, in Ragnarok, you're in like a lot of different settings. Alfheim, once again, a pain in the ass, but having access to so many different areas is kind of crazy. Luckily, they do give you a, fast travel mechanic that does work pretty well, and I appreciate that. But for, story plot wise, like it jumps around quite a bit. But the real main point is that Kratos has seen a tablet at the end of God of War 2018 prophesizing his death. Atreus also finds out of this prophecy and sees that he's also prophesized to work with Odin, ends up kind of working with Odin, but wants to play it so that maybe he can learn something. But there's this very big back and forth with trust between Atreus and Kratos, and Atreus actually being, his real name is Loki. And you see how once I start to explain this, there's just a lot of extra things. There's just so much extra stuff going on. And it's very good when you know what's going on. And these games deal with like time travel in a way, I guess, or a time loop, I should say, the Jormungandr time loop, which I'm not even going to get into because it's just, again, it's a little like complicated in the direction that this game goes in after the first one. Or I guess even just comparative, I keep saying the first one, but it's like God of War 4 and 5. But just compared to how God of War 2018 goes story, it's a way point A to point B kind of thing, where Ragnarok takes you across many different numbers of places. Yeah, it can just be a lot. And a lot of people do agree that the blades don't seem as strong in Ragnarok as they do in God of War 4, which I'm kind of like, well, I feel like they're as strong as they are in God of War 4 because it's more of a story thing, and like you need strong weapons of fire to go into hell. And then he has like basically the strongest fire weapons essentially. So I think that reflects that. Where in Ragnarok now they have to make the axe and the blades equal because they're not the special weapon of this game. The special weapon of this game is Draupnir's spear, baby. Later in the game, equivalent to when you would get Blades of Chaos or just any of the stronger weapons in the whole franchise. That's just kind of how it goes. Like even, let's say in Ghosts of Sparta, a great example, you get the Arms of Sparta at that end point of the game. Or like the Gauntlet of Zeus is another good example. But Draupnir Spear is one of my favorite weapons to use in the whole franchise. It's so fun. You get the satisfaction of throwing a weapon like with the axe, because the axe you can throw and you call it back to you. But the spear you can throw multiple times and you can just keep throwing it, because you can keep throwing it and having it reappear in your hand because of how Draupnir Spear works, because they turn Draupnir Spear into a ring. See, it's just more complicated stuff. But then they made the ring into a weapon that Kratos could use, but it's also a ring. So he makes it into a spear and he throws the spear, and then he can make another one. And then the spear tip is still stuck in the thing. So he can throw a whole bunch of them and then detonate it. It's just so satisfying. And then they all have little explosions. And it's how you take down a boss, Heimdall. But I don't want to get too in the weeds of it, because again, it is actually a lot. I think that's kind of the unfortunate downfall of this game, is that it's very similar to God of War 4. It's almost the exact same, like, gameplay wise. It has very similar idea where the traveling is all kind of the same. The same Midgard, except it's frozen now. So the original map has changed. It's not just the exact same map. And you go to way more locations in this game. So the game's just a lot bigger on like a grand scale. Still a lot of great supporting characters, a phenomenal ending, really fun boss fight sequences, a really fun final boss fight sequence, to say that. And there is a lot of extra stuff to do. There is so much extra stuff. And although I don't think who do you fight in this game? The captains, instead of the Valkyries, they have the Berserks. That's who they are, the Berserkers. The Berserkers are not nearly as hard as the Valkyries, I will say, but there's more, and you get a lot of really good dialogue from doing the extra stuff in this game. Like, they do a lot in 4 as well, because Atreus is learning about Kratos, so he tells him stories of his past, kind of reframed in a different way. But in Ragnarok, him and Mimir very much talk about things that happen in a more plain way, because Kratos is more open about talking to them. But the context that is given from Kratos and the insight that's given from Mimir and Freya and the questions that Atreus asks, like, it's so good. Like, it's so good. It just makes for such a good atmosphere, and it's just one of those games where you want to do everything else because of the extra dialogue that it gives you. Like, when the game's over and they're like, yes, but there's still lots to do. We have to rebuild. It's like, yeah, we got to rebuild. And you're like, hell yeah, let's do it. I know there's a lot of stuff I left undone that I can go and do. Like, I platinumed Ragnarok as well. It was so hard not to, because I just wanted to just keep doing stuff. Like, I wanted to, like, the Greek ones were the same thing. I just went and replayed every single game. That's why I'm doing this tier list. And that's why I did like 1, 2, and 3. And then I did 4 and 5 in Valhalla. And then I went, I need to play more. So I went back to the Greek ones. And now that I'm done, Chains, Ghost, and Ascension, I almost want to like just loop back into more, because that's just what these games do. They just make you want to continuously play them. And I think that God of War 4 and God of War Ragnarok are like the best examples of that. I feel like that's a pretty good rant about that game. And I feel like when all's said and done, I do have a lot of love for this game, like a lot of very high praise for this game, but it also falls off in a lot of different avenues. So I'm actually going to put it in the bottom of A. I was debating, this might slip to the top of B, but I think it's going to be on the bottom of A right now. That's what I think I'm gonna do. I hope this isn't a boring list, because I just love every game, basically. And the final talking point here is no exception of that, is at God of War Valhalla. That is some free DLC for God of War Ragnarok that released at the end of 2023. I was so hyped when they did that. Kratos basically gets an invitation to travel through some mystic waters and stuff, and finds himself on the shores of Valhalla. Valhalla, how it kind of works is a little different for everyone in this world. So when Kratos brings himself into Valhalla, he's faced with many different challenges throughout the rooms he goes through. And because he has such a hard time with dealing with the things that he's done in his past, basically all of Valhalla is him coming to terms with that. It's a roguelike, so you will just be replaying it, over and over again, upgrading your abilities, upgrading your weapons until you finally beat, I think you have to do 3 3 runs. You get to the very end, and Tyr is the final boss of this one, which is really sick to fight the Norse god of war in this game. Pretty tough too, and he brings out weapons from other mythologies that he's collected through his time of being god of war and going through the other mythologies. So it's just so cool to be like, oh, that's from this and that's from that, and I wonder if they're going to do more of that in other games. And now, you know, seeing God of War Lefay coming out, you can see that this was kind of like a hint to that as well. But this is a, you know, another game kind of like, you know, Sons of Sparta, where they really took the formula of God of War and put it on its head with making it a roguelike. Right off the bat, you kind of are given the choice of which route you're going to be taking. It's either the axe route, the blades route, or the spear route, and everything you get past that will keep in mind of the first choice that you've picked. I love using the spear. I find some of the spear abilities and have so much good utility, and it's not like it's not going to give you abilities for the other weapons. It does, but it's just the main focus, if you pick, let's say, the spear path, is the spear. I think this is a really good roguelike. Like, it has a lot to offer, a lot of different abilities, a lot of different spells, a lot of different ways to like go about these challenges. And even when you beat it and you like beat Valhalla, it like unlocks other rooms, I guess, and a lot of it revolves around all of Kratos's, you know, his past. So even when you get into Valhalla, like there's one section where it's old Greece and it looks just like the cover of God of War 2. It brings up a lot of events from previous games that are now retold, you know, in the framing that they are. So it even brings up, you know, God of War Chains of Olympus with Kratos helping Helios and bringing the sun back into the sky. And then when he was falling out of the sky, Helios saved him. And then he goes on to be like, well, then I killed Helios. Like, why did I do that? Like, I was just so vengeful and so hateful. And it ultimately culminates in Kratos. It would have been crazy to have you fighting yourself, like your old self, but he ends up having a conversation with his old self, which helps his new self to kind of come to terms with his old self. You know what I mean? Self-realization and all that stuff. And it ends up coming full circle, and Kratos becomes the god of hope, which he kind of was before, but now he truly is. In God of War 3, he kind of released hope back to the mortals with his final act of defiance against the gods, and now he's finally becoming a god worthy of praise. And it is a very beautiful moment, a very full circle moment. It's crazy to play the games in an order and get to this point. It's like, wow, Kratos's character arc truly has arced. It's truly fully arced. That is a double rainbow all the way. Like, not that he doesn't have more story to give, but his whole initial arc from where he started in the Greek saga to where he is now in the Norse saga is complete. Like, that character development has been had now, and he can move forward with his head held high, and he will have to face new problems. Like, he's basically taking on the mantle of God of War in the Norse era now, and now that his wife, we don't know what the hell is going on in the Lefay game, so that's going to be very interesting to see. But basically the whole series just has so much more potential going forward, even with making him this. If anything, I think gives them more liberty, because they've already done the whole revenge thing and the whole angry thing, and now they're doing a father, and they just have so many ways they can go. And now I'm kind of talking about the series as a whole. I haven't even ranked God of War Valhalla yet. I love God of War Valhalla. I think God of War Valhalla is so peak. It's so good. I'm torn if it's because of how much I like it's, because it's a very big combination of the Norse and the Greek. I want to put it in S so badly. You know what? I was like, I'm gonna put it in the top of A. No, it's going into S tier. It is going into S tier. I don't even care. We're gonna have 4 games in S tier. That's crazy. We got God of War 3, God of War 4, Ghosts of Sparta, and God of War Valhalla. And we also have God of War 2. So I guess that is 5 games in the S tier. Almost half of the games in the franchise are in S tier. What the hell is this? But that, I think, is just a testament to how good these games are. Like I said, this could have been a funny joke video, and it's just all the games are S tier, but I really believe these are 4 of the best games in the series. They're absolutely phenomenal. And we might as well put them in order from least to best to crown the greatest God of War game ever made. At the bottom of our God S tier, we have Ghost of Sparta, one of the best PSP games ever made. After that, it was quite the toss-up. In my original edit, I actually had this in a different order, but my next choice, God of War 2, one of the best sequels ever made. In third place, we have the end of Kratos' journey, God of War Valhalla, one of the best DLCs ever made. In second place, we have the revival of Kratos and the beginning of a completely new journey, God of War 2018, one of the best reboots of all time. And in first place, we have the one, the only, God of War 3 has returned.
Your son has returned.
Looks so good. Oh my god.
Destruction of Olympus.
The best God of War game ever made. It could be a toss-up with 4 at this point, honestly, but I think God of War 3 is so fucking peak, bro. It's so good. God of War 4 is easily the next closest. I love the writing and the story of that game. It's so good, but just God of War 3 is just, it's such a good game. It's so fun. I love it. It's so of its time, and I think it holds up very well. Now, I don't want to rant even more about God of War 3, but just know it's genuinely one of my favorite games of all time. I would put God of War 3 in my top 3. I'm gonna be so real. I love that game. I also just replayed it, and it still slaps pretty damn hard. Like, every moment is big in that game. Like, it's just so good. It's just so good. So there it is. That's my official ranking. That's the official ranking of all of the God of War games in the entire series, including God of War Betrayal. Overall, as you can see, these games rock, and I recommend pretty much all of them. But God of War 3 stands on the tippity top. Okay, so as always, thanks so much for watching. I very much appreciate it. I want to know if people rock with Ghost of Sparta as much as I do, so let me know in the comments below. But also, what's your favorite God of War game? And if you're still here, thank you very much. I genuinely appreciate it. These videos take a long time, and I'm trying to spend more time and more effort making better videos. So if you want to see more of that, please subscribe. I'd greatly appreciate it. Until then, good afternoon, good evening, good night. We'll see you guys later. Peace.